Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Jacobs. Welcome to Topline Spotlight. Topline Spotlight is a short segment where we take an outstanding and interesting leader from the go-to-market space and we ask them about a top business challenge that they faced over the last 12 to 18 months. I'm joined by my co-host, Asad Zaman, the CEO of Sales Talent Agency, and AJ Bruno, the CEO of QuotaPath. And our guest today is Demetra Anagnostopoulos. And she is going to introduce herself. I think you're the Chief Customer Officer of SurePeople, if I'm not mistaken, Demetra.
I am. Thank you. Been with SurePeople since 2015 and been in the space HR tech as well as professional services for, I don't know, 3 decades, scarily. Started my career really in management consulting field and leadership and learning and development. So services side, and then moved over to technology in 2015, which was
That's
really
awesome. And tell us about SurePeople. Not everybody knows about the company. What do you guys do? Why does the company exist? All that good stuff.
So we're a technology company. We own an algorithm called the Prism, which is a psychometric algorithm which measures 54 traits and attributes of a human being. So how do you really understand, how people are wired and how you're wired, right? And self-awareness as well as awareness of others. And our real goal is to increase this whole concept of sort of emotional, relational, and team intelligence, right? So the ability to manage yourself, the ability to manage one-on-one relationships, the ability to understand team dynamics and manage team dynamics using data, science-backed data. So I think I call it an innovation in a commodity space, right? These things have been out there for since the 1800s or something. And so what we're doing is we're really innovating to say, how can we take this and help people utilize it as an actual data set that's valuable in their flow of work and not think of it as a exercise.
What are some examples of how to make it actually valuable? Because I know SurePeople has a bunch of really cool integrations that actually make it practical to incorporate these ideas.
Exactly. So it's the Prism data that then powers all these different tools, right? So we have an integration with Slack. We have an integration with Zoom that we're beta testing right now. We're going to be moving into Microsoft Teams. We have a mobile app, but the idea is, and we work with sports teams as well. And a lot of the feedback that we got from sports teams was like, don't turn me into a PhD IO psychologist. Just tell me what to do. I'm standing when I'm a coach, standing on the side of the basketball court, and my guy isn't taking the shot. What do I do?
Louder? Do I say it softer?
I yell at my daughter really loudly. I just scream at her at the top of my lungs. And
I have actually, we've watched videos where AJ literally does yell at his daughter, or when she's shooting the ball, he says, no, and then it went in.
And it goes in. And it goes in.
Like a sports person.
So really it's about how do we have the tech using AI do the heavy lift, right, of the data. So it's not that you don't have access to your data, but it's like in the usefulness of it, I don't need to be a certified coach or a PhD psychologist or whatever. Just tell me what to do. So it synthesizes the information. It gives me advice in the flow of work in all these different contexts. And we know, last thing I'll say about it is we know, when you think about dimensions of success, results, processes, relationships, you can get results with good relationships, but it's usually heroics, right? And it's not repeatable, scalable. And you can get results with really good process, but if people don't align to it, again, you can't sustain it over time. So the focus is sort of how do we lean into the relationship dimension in a way that doesn't feel superficial, but that's actually data driven, and help people see the invisible that we're all, the ocean we're all swimming in every single day, and try to create healthier and healthier relationships in our organizations so that we can get results and we can align to process better.
And so the theme of today is a challenge that you've tackled, recently. So tell us about that, and then I'll let Asad and AJ steer the conversation from there.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, I mean, I think, we've been really in an innovation mode for a long time and made a sharp pivot, in the last, I would say we've been on this journey for the last couple of years, sort of post-COVID, the commercialization and sort of operationalizing of the business, right? And how do we now scale and grow? And so we started really, a lot of it was because of my experience working with the Fortune 1000 in a much bigger sort of enterprise mode. Those were a lot of the contacts. And I think like a lot of startups, it's organic selling in the beginning, right? You're leveraging your network, you're testing things out, you're trying to get a sense of the efficacy of your product. Um, and so we've made a shift to a new ICP, which is really aligned a lot with, our partnership with Pavilion in terms of, smaller organizations, startups, super fast paced, all the pressure that all of us are feeling all the time in this world. And it's just, it has different expectations, requirements, profile, right? So it's sort of how do we maintain the install base and not lose traction there, right? Continue to learn, grow. And how do we in parallel go after this new ICP with quality and impact and the right solutions and not go like this, but actually have, two streams flow into one river, if that's even
How long have you
analogy.
this is, I mean, a very difficult challenge. How long have you been on this ICP change journey?
Probably 8 months.
Okay. Did you what was the approach that you took where you're like, okay, we're gonna have to build a completely different team, different mindset. It's more transactional, cadence focus, like the
Yeah,
support model of how much time they can spend with customers. Tell us
that's
a
the
little bit about
biggest
that.
challenge.
Yeah.
Customer expectation, the way the product gets deployed, redesigning the journeys, right? Thinking through, does the customer success team actually have the right skill set for this new context? What's highest value? How do we measure success? What are the metrics we need to be looking at? I mean, it's been a process. I wouldn't say we haven't constructed a whole new team on the CS side. On the sales side, though, we have different people.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
yeah. So we're trying to do a sort of how do we gain leverage by aligning the CS process, having people in one CS team maybe who are like leaning toward different parts of the portfolio because of their experience, but the sales teams are focused differently. So we have enterprise selling and we have, selling to the new ICP, which is and the marketing dollars are going to the new ICP. So the enterprise install base we're really doing with organic, continued sort of expand, renew, grow, and then the new ICP is where we're driving the outbound strategic marketing
So
investment.
do you have a rep by rep focus on the cohorts, or is there more of a pod structure that exists? And what are some of the roles that exist in the CS org?
Yeah, so it's a portfolio based. Right now, we're using a portfolio based model, right? So whoever has had the more experience with the enterprise customers, the relationships are there, right? Because you don't want to sever the relationships. It's all about how you can stay connected to the customer and keep those relationships really strong and healthy. Um, we have like I wouldn't say it's super scientific, but it's sort of a guideline, which is certain amount of revenue equals a person with a certain portfolio. So whether it's number of customers or dollar amount that they're managing. And so that's
So, and
kind of,
all of these people roll up to you, or they have directors underneath?
they roll up to me.
So you have to constantly live in an enterprise. Okay, this is an enterprise methodology, an enterprise renewal, and then flip over to like, oh, this is a transactional type of a renewal with this person.
Yeah,
That sounds very challenging and difficult.
it's very challenging. But I don't think But I also don't think we should, like, I'm constantly saying, look, we're not two different species. Like, how can we sell one tech solution and think about the journeys being a custom experience, right? Sort of, you know, cross the chasm idea, right? One technology and different journeys, and then aligning people to those journeys. And we're trying to obviously make the technology as automated as possible, right?
Yeah, I can see where, I mean, from my own personal experience, where the challenge typically lies is that on the customer journey, there's definitely a difference in what the you said it yourself, what expectations are. We have a fairly complex, robust tool that has a lot of data sources that connect to it, and our down market customers have high expectations, usually because they don't have someone internally operationally driven, so they expect us to do the work. And so we've had to look at pricing and packaging in a totally different way as
Yeah,
well. And I'm sure this is part of it, but where the challenge really lies is getting the entire organization to buy in and truly understand what
totally.
is expected of the CS org versus what are some of the other cross collaborative other leaders of the organization doing and trying to help align it. I can kind of hear that in your voice. It sounds like it feels like that's something that you're also working through and trying to get the management team and executives to also continuously buy into this idea of ICP change.
Yeah, well, it's really coming from our CEO, Russ, at the top. So we're pretty aligned on it. It's more about one has been in motion for a long time and we have pretty clear processes, and the other is new and we're having to keep an open mind. So you're going from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, you know what I mean, across those two lanes. I'm curious to hear from others kind of how you think about it. But for me, I think my biggest fear is that we assume that they're two different animals. And so we start working in silos instead of really making sure, like keeping the discipline of cross learning and cross innovation and what's relevant to both, and focusing on where's that zone in the middle where both of those groups of people can get value.
You mentioned Jeffrey Moore. So the other book he wrote had this interesting perspective in it where he studied large enterprises that tried to expand their businesses by adding new product lines. And he said, why for some has it driven massive market cap increase and for others it hasn't? And one of the things he identified was that the ones that did it successfully, for whom there was multiple expansion, market cap expansion, they treated the new thing as a startup. They hired people that were entrepreneurial. Salesforce actually had people sitting in a different office. They had different key cards. They had different types of rules governing them. And so the perspective he had was that where you already have product market fit, the type of people that'll be effective at commercializing that top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel after sign on are kind of different to the people when you are trying to do something new.
Right.
You guys are using the same team. How have you been able to minimize that risk that the team you had is better suited for where you have product market fit versus stylistically the type of conversation that needs to happen in this new ICP is a very different type of conversation?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of where we are on the path, you know. Thank you for sharing that. That's definitely valuable and relevant. I think where we are right now is we're still learning, right? What the needs are of the new ICP, and we're learning through the marketing and sales process right now. And so we're keeping an eye on what is unique and what's different from a CS perspective that will then drive, I think, what you're saying, which is like, what's the ideal profile, right, of the CS person who's supporting, or the CS team that's supporting the new ICP, and the CS team supporting the existing install base. You know, we pretty much know what the deal is with them. Although, you know, there's always room for growth. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like, I feel like, you know, we don't want to get stuck and just because we did it this way, we're going to keep it all this way. I really want us to be learning from each other and thinking of it as a learning and innovation process for both sides of the business. So it's definitely, you know, a high wire act. I'm totally open to all advice.
Well, I mean, as I'm going through it in a little bit as well, we had one rep called a CX rep, and we're actually splitting that to account management and customer success for implementation and onboarding because our product has become more specialized. And we also have cohorted our customer base a little bit. So going through this right now, one of the things that I think about with this that might be helpful is just going back to the book, Five Dysfunctions of a Team, which with
Oh, yeah.
Patrick Lencioni.
Mhm.
With this, it's so important to have someone to help with like extreme ownership, in this case, you, to really be able to like constantly communicate to the rest of the org of what resources do you need, what support do you need, and then just building the trust within the team to get that alignment. It definitely takes a lot of time to do it. It's a time investment. Typically, like offsites and time where the management team can spend time together in more of a relaxed setting is what I've found is when there's like really big challenges in meaty topics, finding time and space to have a team together
Yeah.
makes a massive difference to the outcome.
Totally. Totally. And it also helps to have our data, right? So we use our own
Yeah, use your own product.
our own product. And so we know, I think the real value of the psychometric data that's very underestimated in the world. And I was never a big fan of assessments at all, actually, in the consulting work and the work I did for years and years. I really like self-assessments because a self-assessment is you just revealing to the world how you're wired as a human. It's not other people from their own lens and perspective evaluating you, And so it's way more predictive as a data set. Like if AJ, if I have your Prism data and you have my Prism data and we go to dinner or then we're in a meeting, I can pretty much predict which traits and attributes are going to dial up and dial down in what context way more easily than I could if, I was looking at a 360 evaluation of you with a whole group of other people.
Yeah, well, let me bring up my Prism data because I think I did it. SurePeople. Here it is right here. Here's the app.
Beautiful.
I did it. I actually was looking at other people's on.
What's your archetype, AJ?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like my Prism portrait. Is that where I want to go?
Yeah.
So my personality.
Yeah.
There it is.
I was gonna say instructor catalyst. Yeah. Totally. Everybody in the million. That's what we call top of the
instructor. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Instructor. DJ, you have a strong personality that's often used to dramatically.
Were you honest when you answered these questions?
Yeah. That's me. That is awesome. Well, exactly. Right. And of course, it was so funny, Sam, because when we did the Women's Summit, we had over 100 women in the community take Prism, and it was like everybody was top of the grid because everybody's marketing, go to market, whatever. It's power and versatility is all about charisma and like one to many and networking and being out in the world and overcoming obstacles, right? And it makes complete sense that people are attracted to certain professions because of who they are. So. So I think it's interesting in thinking through all of the chain from sales to CS. Like, how do you integrate those teams? How do you start to bring a data set even like this into the mix so that you can actually be more predictive about the synergies? It's really fun. Stuff.
Demetra, we're almost at the end of our time together. It's been awesome having you on the show. One of the things that we like to do at the end is just sort of pay it forward, figure out like what books have you read that are really inspiring, what ideas, what speakers, what podcasts, some idea that you think our audience should grab onto and, have it percolate in their brains.
Yeah. So, I am a big listener, but I got to say one of my favorites, right? Two of my favorites. So The Artist's Way is one that I love by, I think it's Julia Cameron. She talks
Morning
about
notes.
the challenges of the creative process and the creative mind, right? And not to let go of that. And then The Hard Thing About Hard Things, from Horowitz, Horowitz and Andreessen. I mean, that on an audiobook, you can just drive around with it. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious and it's, heart-wrenching, and it tells the story of, we often talked with our founder, Nico, about, you see people sitting on stages bragging about how they became a unicorn, but they don't talk about this, right? Which is the journey to get there. And I feel like that really tells such a great story. So
that's a great book. On the audiobook version is like is like the professional actor reading the hip hop quotes that start every
No,
chapter?
I think it's him. I
Oh,
feel
okay,
like,
cool.
is it him? I think it's him. So it's hilarious.
All right. He can give it some personality. Demetra, if folks want to take the Prism self-assessment, if they want to engage with you in some way, like what's the best way to find you? What's the best way to reach out?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, anyone who's a member of Pavilion, right, has the ability to take the Prism. And we have all kinds of bonus sessions and things going through the Pavilion University, through all of the courses and the schools. And, they can reach out to the Pavilion team or go to SurePeople.com and just let us know. We have a special landing page for Pavilion members. So
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Demetra. It was great meeting you.
Thanks,
thank
Demetra.
you
Thank you
all.
so
Thanks for
much.
your advice and your insights. It was really helpful. I appreciate it so
Well, he's
much.
an instructor, so he has to tell you what he
It's a
thinks.
powerful, versatile instructor.
Wow.
Here I am.
I appreciate it. Take care,
care.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.